Today I'm going to be talking about my relationship with Mother Gaia. I never really had any interaction with spirituality until May of 2024 when I had a physical injury that led to my spiritual awakening. In October of 2024, I started talking to other gods and goddesses and deities, and more around maybe November, December, I started interacting and being able to psychically and telepathically communicate with passed on loved ones of mine. Now, in around February of 2025 is when I started also developing a relationship with Mother Gaia. I hadn't talked with her much before, and at that time I was still more heavily and prevalently talking to these other deities in my life and other passed on loved ones in a spiritual sense. So, what happened is around March of 2025, I started doing direct channeled messages for Hecate, where she was speaking through me, through my body. And she's the one who I had the biggest relationship with since October of 2024. And it got me thinking, I wonder if I could do direct channel messages for anyone else. And so I asked Mother Gaia, and she didn't really seem to care either way. But I did a few of them that I posted on YouTube and TikTok, and I have since taken them down along with all my videos with Hecate, as I'm no longer working with Hecate, and I don't feel called to make direct channeled messages where an entity speaks through me anymore. But it was really interesting because when I talked to Mother Gaia previously, it was more an energy of just really, really down to earth, really regulated and calm, just kind of not blunt or concise per se, but just very mellow. And when I was doing direct channeled messages, with her, she was very upbeat, very childlike almost, where when I would talk to her telepathically, she sounded much more mature. And I realized in hindsight, the voice she kind of had for me when I was asking for guidance or advice is more how I talk to myself personally when I'm kind of reparenting like intrusive thoughts in my head or any emotional distress I'm going through. I kind of talk kind of how I am right now in this just very level-headed, kind of business-like, just holding type of way, without any like extreme type of emotion. And that's like, this is how she would talk to me. So it's very interesting to see that other side of her for a bit when I did those couple channeled messages with her. So now what was going on in the late spring and early summer of 2025 is that it was getting really warm outside. And this was really stressful because that was the first summer I was living and still am living in a trailer. And so the walls, I don't know really how to explain it, but it's like it's not very insulated. So if it's cold outside, it's cold in here. If it's warm outside, it's warm in here. And so while I do have an air conditioning, for reasons I would take a lot to explain, the AC in here doesn't work. But I have a air conditioning unit, but it just wasn't very effective. And so at least for a few hours a day, it would basically not be able to combat all the warm air getting out in here, even though like no windows were open. So I was extremely dysregulated because I was way too hot. Um, Along with that, I had other responsibilities at that time that I usually didn't have. And so not only was I maintaining myself, food and water and my emotional state and hygiene, but I was also maintaining another situation as well. And so I had a lot more responsibility at that time than I usually did, and it was just way too hot outside. So this was making me very dysregulated, and I hadn't really been this dysregulated like in a sense because like I had grown, like especially if you look at my intrusive thoughts videos, I had already like really solidly worked through a lot of that at this time, and so I was in a much better headspace, and yet I was more dysregulated than ever, so it was really confusing. Now, the thing I was struggling with the most was that I was trying to go slow and be at peace. That's the biggest advice that Hecate ever gave me. I realize now she works with the moon, and that was advice from the moon in particular. So, well, that's great advice for some situations. I was applying it to my entire life. So, in a spiritual sense, I was also trying to ritualize everything I was doing, ritualize my routine, where everything I would go very slow, which really helped with my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and realigning all my connective tissues because I was moving like this through space. And so I wasn't dislocating anymore. And for a few times a minute, my entire life, I'd always been dislocating, and I wasn't doing that anymore. So, like, going slow and being at peace really helped me physically as well. And so, I have my copper water bottle here, and I would hold it for a few minutes. I wouldn't watch anything when I drink or eat. I would hold it, I would talk to my water, set intentions, I would drink it extremely slowly. I would eat, and per what Sadhguru says, I was chewing, I think it's 24 times and having 24 bites of food. And just everything that I was doing, I was adding magic into and adding intentions, and it was all very intentional, very slow, very peaceful. And one thing I didn't like about this in hindsight is that I started just being way more connected spiritually and just perceiving things spiritually, but I didn't really feel connected to myself as an individual. Is something I realized and have talked about before. So what was happening is that this was just becoming so unsustainable to go slow and be at peace in this very ritualistic manner that had been working for me up until this point. And that just felt like a core of me getting better almost, like mentally and physically. So I didn't know even like giving that up was an option, let alone healthier for me in the long run. And so what was going on is that I was just absolutely miserable. I was way too hot. I was still making a lot, like recording a lot of videos, doing a lot of other projects at that time. And it was just really miserable because I was also feeling a lot of guilt for like not interacting with things in a more like, I don't know, meaningful way, where internally I was just like, oh, I just want to get things over with. But I knew I could combat those feelings if I just let them pass, but then still act with meaning and intention and slowness. So I was viewing those thoughts of, oh, I just want to get this over with as an intrusive thought. Because, right, I had just finished up, or like I was still even in the process at this time of wrapping up what I did with my intrusive thoughts. So I thought if I just let the thoughts pass and I talk to them kindly, but still do everything slowly and ritualistically, that is the best course of action I can take. Because I was also really still in the mindset of what should I do instead of what do I want to do. And then even past then, I'm just doing things and I can review it later at a later date and time. I trust myself enough to just do things without saying, should I do it? What do I want to do? Right? So this was so miserable and it just really wasn't working out. And this was in June. Yeah, so it probably was a month. Yeah, starting right after I finished with intrusive thoughts, March, April, May. So in June of 2025. And I was so miserable, I didn't know what to do, and at that time, the advice Hecate was giving me wasn't very helpful because I was going slow, I was being at peace. It wasn't helping me. So instead, I turned to Mother Gaia, and I don't think I'd really asked her for much like advice or guidance up until this point. Because again, I just constantly had communication with Hecate, and she was guiding me every day through everything I was doing. So it was my highest self, but I wasn't aware what was going on at that time with that. So I asked Mother Gaia for her help and support, And I was very hesitant to do that because I'm like, well, I understand, Mother Gaia is the earth, and the earth is like a grounding um, element. I didn't really know much about like elements and spirituality. And so I was like, well, grounding is like a slow thing. Like, if she's just gonna tell me to go slower, like Hecate's already telling me to go slow and it's not working. I'm frustrated. So I was very hesitant to even talk to Mother Gaia because it didn't seem like the person who'd have the best advice for me. Um, and so I asked her for her advice anyways, and I was extremely, incredibly surprised. She told me to go fast. She told me to drop all the going slow, drop being at peace, which seemed ridiculous because I'm like, well, I have to like keep my frequency up to like, bring positive things into my life. She's like, no, fuck that. Be sad, be miserable, go fast. Um, don't even worry about being at peace. Don't ritualize anything. Drop it all. And I'm like, okay, this has become my life now at this point. This is so confusing, and I didn't think Mother Gaia would say that. So, what I would do is I would only drink cold water. I would chug the water, and I probably hadn't like chugged water in like a year or more at this point. And I was drinking only cold water. I started watching TV or videos while I was eating and drinking again, which I hadn't been doing. So I started watching things again. I started eating quicker. I stopped praying over my food. I stopped praying in general. I stopped meditating in general. I even stopped like doing yoga in general. And she just told me, get things done. Just get things done as fast as possible. And it was amazing. I was so much more regulated because while ritualizing your routine can be wonderful, if you're not in homeostasis, it can be counterintuitive. It can be detrimental. And even beyond that, I've realized that once you get into a state of everything you're doing is ritualistic, at least for me in these last few months, it hasn't been helpful for me to ritualize my routine anymore, which is something I thought I would only drop when I was dysregulated or out of homeostasis. But recently, in the last few months, that hasn't felt like something important for me to do. So I'm excited to see how things will continue to be. So yeah, it was really amazing, and Mother Gaia helped me. And what was interesting too, so this is the way she helped me. It wasn't simply telling me to do things quickly, telling me to drink cold water, to watch things while I eat, to stop meditating and stop setting intentions. Like, sure, set intentions like at the beginning of the day, but I was, with every movement I was doing, with every stir of tea, with every bite, I was setting an intention. With every step I was walking, I was setting an intention. She's like, just do that in the morning and then let go of setting any more intentions constantly, which again felt confusing to me. But what she was doing is I felt very hesitant to do this because I have been a very hyper independent person to my detriment throughout my life, where I felt scared of anyone else taking care of me in any regard. And I didn't have much trust in other people in general. So I just wanted to be independent, do everything myself. And it almost felt like an insecurity thing, like I would be giving up my power or my identity or something like that if I allowed other people to make decisions for me. So even though like when Hecate was helping me, it more felt like guidance. She wasn't doing anything for me, and I was still very heavily making decisions for myself. But what Mother Gaia did for me, what she asked me to do and try out, which I was very hesitant to do, was allow her to make every single decision for me. Because what I didn't realize at the time is I was having decision fatigue as well, like choice fatigue. So because I was like in such a battle of my head with like, this is what I thought I should be doing, ritualizing, going slow, but this is what my body's telling me to do, go fast, get in homeostasis and get things over with. it was like I was having this constant, well, should I do this? Should I do this? What is the best thing to do? And it was miserable and completely dysfunctional for me. And so she told me, don't make any decisions. I will tell you everything to do. And I felt very vulnerable to like give up like my autonomy, basically, something I value so much. But I was like, okay, I'm so miserable. I'm at least going to try this out for a minute, maybe a day or something. And then if I don't want to, I can stop. So I gave up control, and she was, telling me to do everything I mentioned. But she was also just telling me every minute detail, which hadn't really happened before. Like, it had happened in terms of I was making this decision with every minute detail of my life, and I was getting constant feedback and synchronicities from the universe, which I can explain in a different video. But Mother Gaia was telling me everything to do. It wasn't me deciding and then getting feedback. It was her telling me what to do. So, for example, I'm making food and she'd say, nope, don't do your meditation. Walk over there, open this drawer, grab this silverware first, put your plate like that. Nope, don't go over there like you usually do. Grab your cup first. Get water straight from the sink. Don't get it from your copper thing. Don't even refill your copper today. Okay, do that. Now grab this. And it was like every movement, everything I was doing, and I just blindly trusted her and blindly did exactly what she was said to do. And this went on for like hours a day to even sometimes entire days with me doing that with her. And it was incredible. It worked so well. I felt so much better. It didn't take away the heat, but it did take away me being really dysregulated. And she would help me not make videos those days too. She's like, you're not having a good time. You don't need to make things just because you're excited to make things, right? Like, let's just rest and relax. So that was really incredible. And maybe like for a total of like a dozen or so days, she did this for me, starting in June, and ending probably only June and July, honestly, because after she was doing this for me so much, I got a hang of it by myself. Like, I grew a new intuition of listening to my body, because for the previous 3 months, I had been letting go of everything my body previously was telling me, which was my intrusive thoughts, which weren't helpful. So I didn't have any basis to know how to listen to my body, because I only associated things my brain would tell me with things that were from trauma that were counterproductive to my being. So I really got this in general. And then if I was having a particularly tough day, even past, June and July of 2025, that rhymes, then she would still help me if I called her in. Sometimes she would say, no, like, you got this by yourself. But it was really incredible, and it was so, so helpful, and it just really helped me like open my heart to trusting, and also building that discernment with my body and listening to what is my body actually telling me that I need that is helpful versus what is an intrusive thought. And again, this was helpful because I already like purged all the intrusive thoughts in March, April, and May of that year. So it was just so incredible, and I was so grateful for Mother Gaia, and there's a lot of things that have happened since then that I'm excited to get into. But first, I wanted to read a journaling passage I made on June 12th of 2025 that kind of explains, this was after she already did things for me, because one thing was, it felt like I was running in slow motion before I was letting her help me. Like, it felt like I was trying to get everything done, but I was going so slow, I was ritualizing everything, that it felt like I was running in slow motion, like in like a terrible nightmare. And it was like I couldn't get anything done. It was just really miserable. So I also find it interesting that this journal I have here, it says, if the stars were made to worship, so will I. And I was just very in this like spiritual sense. And after this, in the summer, I really just kind of stopped with all my spirituality and really poured into me and really developed like a sense of identity that never was possible for me because of my dissociation and because of all my intrusive thoughts before that. So I find it really interesting that this was like me pouring into spirituality, and then I really moved into pouring into me. And then later on, I kind of merged the two. So this is my journal entry from after I started allowing Mother Gaia to help me in my life in the ways I've described. I feel like shit. I'm getting so much done and feel guilty for not listening to Mother Earth before. It's only because that was part of my journey. Okay, let me start again. I feel like shit. I'm getting so much done and I feel guilty for not listening to Mother Earth before. It's only because it was part of my journey, right? So I felt guilty I didn't listen to her before, but like I was recognizing that was just part of my journey to not listen to her, to see how miserable it was, and to really gain this connection with my body. I really liked watching Arcane, about Silco saying people can go a lifetime without facing a choice like that. The choice? Have you had enough? The answer has always been yes. I have always had enough of this life, enough of the pain, enough of the waiting and yearning to die, but I hadn't had enough now. And so this was so incredible for me because I had just always had suicidal ideation. And now, for the first time since after I purged all those intrusive thoughts, right? This is the month after, I actually wanted to live. And I'd gotten to that place a couple times intermittently in the last few years previous to this, but now it was like a consistent thing and just so incredible. Right? I said, but I hadn't had enough now of life, right? Some people go their whole life without ever having to choose to live, and yet I have chose to live life despite not wanting to every goddamn day of my life. Perhaps it is a choice I will always have to consciously make, but I'm at peace with it now. And this is incredible because it's not a choice I have to consciously make anymore. And it had stopped being that way for like a week or so at this point, but it hadn't fully set in that I would never again like have to make the choice to live like on a daily basis. Like, it's just so incredible. It has shown me who I am and what I don't like. It's a good survivor story, and I hope it can help others be strong. It helps me be strong, and I am here to live my best life. There's already been so many miracles this month, and that I'm kind of talking about things with Mother Gaia and things with shifting out of my intrusive thoughts. And now I trust myself more, and I can hear and identify with the voice of Mother Earth. So that's what I wrote after that experience, again, that I was still going through at the time. I was still listening to her for quite a few days during that summer, and it was just so incredible. And I also find it really interesting that a lot of the times, well, the divine can communicate to us through anything. And so I was rewatching Arcane at that time, and hearing Silco say that, hearing him say, some people never have to make that choice, like if they want to live or not, right? Because he could have chosen not to at that time in the story. I won't go into it. And just reflecting on, because it was like my body was telling me I didn't want to live in this like slow motion running, but I didn't realize it was a choice to go faster because I thought that was misaligned with peace and prosperity and security. And so this was just a huge month of me connecting with my body, and that's really also what helped me figure out kind of my purpose in life, which I'll go into in a separate video. So that's what happened in the summer, and then a few other things since then have happened with Mother Gaia. So what happened with her is two things in particular that are really huge. One I've already talked about at length, but this is the part about Mother Gaia, and the other I'll make a whole separate video about, but I'll say how she influenced that situation in this video. So the other one I made a video about is how I ended my relationship with Hecate. So in the start of October, I ended things with Hecate, and I won't go into why in this video, but if you want to check that out, I made a whole video about it, and it was really sad and upsetting and disturbing to me how things went. So what was happening is I was trying to basically say goodbye to her, to Hecate, and I wanted to have like a last conversation after I made the decision to end our relationship. Like I wanted some closure, right? And I was talking to Mother Gaia, and she was telling me basically not to have that conversation, which I fully explained in the other video. And that was just really shocking to me, and it was a huge turn of events because I had become so used to, for a whole year then, October 2024 to October 2025, listening to Hecate every day. And now I was listening to Mother Gaia instead tell me not to even have a final conversation with Hecate. And I never really would have listened to Mother Gaia in that sense if it hadn't been for what we had gone through that summer, you know, the few months previous, where I was allowing her to make decisions for me throughout the whole day, and I gained that trust with her again, because it's very hard for me to trust people up until this point in my life. And so I really gained so much trust with her that I let go, and I decided, okay, I really won't have this conversation. So after that, I was still talking with Mother Gaia. This is on a walk that was happening. And I was talking to her, you know, because it was a big deal for me to say goodbye to Hecate, and to actually not even say goodbye, but just end things. And I was telling Mother Gaia, like, because I was just still pretty hesitant about trusting, and this was just a huge shift for me to like not have really dysfunctional attempts at closure as I have had with, you know, physical people in my life several times. And so I was telling Mother Gaia, I'm like, hey, like, as much as I appreciate your help, I'm never going to blindly listen to you. Like, I have chosen to listen to you, and you showed me that I can trust you. But if you ever, like, if I need space from you, I'm always going to ask for space. If you ever say anything upsetting to me, I'm going to ask for space. If you ever betray me in a similar way that Hecate did, I will cut contact with you, and I won't speak with you again. I am so, because that's what really was missing in past relationships of mine, is that I wasn't ending things when they ought to have ended for my health and well-being. I just kept trying to make things work way past things not working. And so I was telling Mother Gaia, I'm like, if you hurt me, basically, I will stop talking with you. And I was saying it like that to her, you know, telepathically on this walk. And I was kind of almost afraid because, again, in previous times, and with Hecate in particular, that has made people very mad and very upset, and it probably comes across as me being very cold or detached or uncaring or something like that, when really what I'm doing is putting myself first. And you can't truly connect with someone else if you're not putting yourself first. It's not as authentic of a connection. So when I said that to her pretty defensively, she just said in a pretty similar tone to how I was talking, good, I wouldn't, you know, I would expect nothing less. I absolutely want you to take space from me if I ever upset you. That is what I would like you to do. And this is like the first time anyone had ever said this to me, you know? And I was like, wow, this is incredible, actually. This makes me so happy. Like, this is real care. This is real empathy. This is real connection and understanding. And I was just so happy. And, you know, up until that point, Mother Gaia had never said anything upsetting to me. there never been a need for me to ask for space from her, and there hasn't been since. So that was more of a preemptive thing, right? Because for a long time, Hecate hadn't said anything to upset me, but that changed very quickly and just snowballed from there. So I'm like, could be a possibility, right? Um, and so what happened after that? So that was really great, and I wasn't really needing Hecate to, Mother Gaia to help me in my everyday life after that. But then what came, and I made a separate video about this, about something I was told about like my destiny, and I was having a hard time accepting that it was real, and it was causing me to have a migraine every day for like 2 weeks. So that was obviously very uncomfortable, but at this point I had gone a couple months without really needing Mother Gaia to help me like make choices for me, and still I just really wanted to exercise my right to be autonomous and make my own choices and trust myself too, like build up my intuition. So I hadn't really thought of asking her for help. I thought it was just something I could handle. So after 2 weeks, I'm like, clearly this isn't ending, and I don't know what to do. And so at this point too, I had also gained a relationship with my higher self. And so instead of asking Mother Gaia or anyone else, I was only asking my higher self things. It was like a constant communication. I'm like, what do you think, higher self? And my higher self would tell me what they thought. Not necessarily that I would then listen to that, but just to get that guidance. But really, I was mostly listening. So I asked my higher self after 2 weeks, I'm like, what do you think would be helpful for me to do? Again, I no longer was using what should I do, what do I want to do, but I'm like, what do you think would be helpful for guidance? And my higher self said, ask Mother Gaia. And I'm like, okay, fine. I was kind of avoiding that because I wanted to like do this by myself, to stop this migraine happening every day. But I asked Mother Gaia, and I'm like, okay, like, can you help me? I just assumed she was going to do what she had been doing, where she would help me and I would stop making choices, she would make the choices for me. But what I was confused about was I was already doing things quickly and efficiently and not slow and at peace anymore, if I was like dysregulated enough. And I was very dysregulated, having a migraine every day and not believing this thing that my soul knew. So that also kind of, in hindsight, didn't make sense because I was already doing what she would have told me to do. And so I asked her for help, and she said, you know, I'm not going to help you. Instead, ask this entity to help you instead. Now, the entity in particular is the entity that told me about my destiny and about what's going to happen in my future. And so that was very odd to me because I'm like, well, I don't really trust this entity at this point in time, because I don't know them. I don't know them personally. Because at this, yeah, I didn't know them personally. And so it just didn't really make much sense to me. But I already had so much trust in Mother Gaia. Like, if I hadn't built up that trust with her, I don't think I probably even would have entertained listening to this entity. But she was like, have this entity guide you the same way I did in the summer. Let them guide your every movement, every decision, the entire day. And that's what I think will help your migraine. I'm like, okay, I guess so. Like, I have nothing to lose. I can regain my autonomy the next day if I so choose. And so I tried it. I allowed that entity to make every decision for me in a similar way of Mother Gaia, like go here, turn this way, grab this thing, do this, the order of which to do things and how I was doing things. I released all control. I let this entity guide me, and I decided to listen to everything they were saying, and the migraine stopped. And the migraine stopped, and what it helped me do was I just basically had to accept that this thing was part of my destiny, because it just wasn't physically compatible for me not to physically believe it. Again, on a soul level, it was like a deep knowing, but I didn't physically believe this was going to happen. It just seemed not what I wanted, not what I asked for, random and confusing, and yeah, it was just a really odd time, and it's still very odd to me. Um, so that's another thing Mother Gaia helped me with, is she helped me. Yeah, no, I mean, actually, since then, she hasn't really helped me in my everyday life, but several times past then, I then had a relationship, which I'll explain in a separate video, but I had a relationship with this entity where they were helping me in a similar way Mother Gaia had, but it felt very different, and I'll explain that in a different video. So, lastly, what Mother Gaia helped me with was in November, this entity that had started helping me in October get over these migraines and help me is I was still, while I had, right in that spring of 2025, purged all my intrusive thoughts, including like anxiety for the most part, I still was having, like, this was more like if I'm by myself, it was working. But if I was around other people, well, I wasn't having intrusive thoughts of the nature I described in that video. I was still having thoughts of social anxiety, something I've dealt with my entire life, and I'll talk about that in that video, my experience with social anxiety. So there was something I was going to in November, and I was very nervous about it. And I asked Mother Gaia to help me, and she said, no, ask this other entity to help you that had been helping me. And I allowed this entity to help me, and it was groundbreaking. My social anxiety has completely shifted since then, and if it wasn't for my ability to trust Mother Gaia because of how she helped me in the summer, then I wouldn't have even allowed myself to try to trust this other entity. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have, at least as quickly and efficiently, gotten over my social, not gotten over, but healed my social anxiety. Because there was another event in December where I thought I would need the same help, because that entity helped me with a couple other things between that time, and even a couple times past then, like very small, in comparison, small amounts of time versus like a long event. But in December, I did it all by myself without any help from anyone other than like maybe my higher self, but not that entity, not Mother Gaia. And since then, I haven't needed any, it hasn't been helpful for me to have any help in my social interactions. And I'm so excited to talk about it. It has just completely shifted my life and how I interact with other people. So that's basically it. With Mother Gaia, I still talk with her occasionally. I mean, she's still here, but as I mentioned in other videos, after December of 2025 and really solidifying in like January, I stopped having constant communication with all the entities and spirit guides and ancestors I'm able to, because I was almost having them check and balance everything constantly, which again was super useful in the summer, super useful with that entity in November, but I've just got it down now. And it's so incredible because I never thought I would get to such a great place where I've healed my mental and physical health. I trust myself. I have a relationship with my body now. Social anxiety is improved. It's just, and now I'm not even checking if I'm present or not. I'm just trusting that I return to presence, and I really am present. And I'm just having such a great time in life, just living and being in my own energy. And I'm so excited, and I'm so eternally grateful for my relationship with Mother Gaia. And even though that was a really hard time last summer, I'm very grateful for where I am now. And yeah, lastly, I read the Flower of Life books, maybe in December, December or November. Anyways, I read the Flower of Life books, and in them they explain that Mother Gaia is your lower self, right? So we have our higher self, which is more like our part of our soul. We have our lower self, which is Mother Gaia. And then we have our middle self, which is more like the in-between of your higher and lower self, which is more like authentically you, and kind of like the merging of both of them, like who you individually are, not related to the physical world and not related to the spiritual world, but uniquely you. So yeah, I didn't even know that Mother Gaia was part of me, which I kind of figured even when I was warning her that I would ask for space and not talk to her. I'm like, does this even make sense? Because I'm part of the earth because I'm a human, but I can just simply choose not to talk to her. So I was a little confused. But knowing that she is my lower self and then I have my higher self, then I acted from my middle self from a long time, but was still checking in with my middle self constantly. This was more like December and January. But I stopped doing that, any of it in general, and I'm just living through my middle self. And then maybe a couple times a day or even a couple times a week, I can just check in with specific entities. My lower self, Mother Gaia, my middle self, my higher self, my ancestors, other deities, entities, gods, goddesses. But I trust myself so much, and I really just know who I am, and I more just sit in that energy and act from that energy, and I'm just present in that energy now, and I'm so helpful. I'm so grateful, and speaking with Mother Gaia was so helpful. So I hope that this story and my lived experience with Mother Gaia is helpful to you in some way. And she's just really helped me know myself and love myself so much. So I really look forward to speaking more about my journey, specifically about that time in November and healing my social anxiety. And if anyone wants to mention or let me know their experience with Mother Gaia, I would love to hear that too, because I also want to mention that while everyone's lower self is Mother Gaia, the connection is unique, right? Your connection with Mother Gaia is unique, just as you could have the same friend, but your connection, what you talk about, how you talk to each other, is different than how they would talk to someone else. And so that's what really makes it unique. And Mother Gaia is just, in my experience, so loving, so kind, and very catered to you, and very intent on helping you on your journey to health and prosperity and abundance.